All right, I'm here today in Burlington, Ontario with T-Rex Glass. How you doing today, T-Rex?
Pretty good.
Good.
Thanks, Tyler.
Thanks for having me, man. It's so awesome to be here. Love the space. I just wanted to get started with asking you, what are some of your hobbies outside of glassblowing?
Well, I don't have a ton. Glass sort of was my hobby and passion and whatnot, and I was able to, make it into my career. But I like to garden. I've got a nice big garden just out front of the shop, and I like to play music. I play piano and guitar these days.
Nice.
Video games, always been a bit of a gamer. Mostly PC, but I also, play whatever's fun, really.
Yeah, for sure. How long have you been playing music for?
Since I was 14, maybe 13, 14, I started with guitar, and actually I started with piano as a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't really enjoy that. Once I learned guitar and learned more about making music, I eventually returned to piano, and now I love playing the piano again. It just wasn't really shown to me to be something you're supposed to make music with. As a kid, it was more of a lesson kind of thing.
For sure. So you're musically inclined. Were you visually artistic as well at the time, or did that kind of come when you started working with glass?
I don't think I'm hugely visually artistic. I don't know. Sometimes I feel, odd talking about art and whatnot, because I know, over the years doing this, working with glass, I've had that debate quite a few times whether it's art or not or whatever. But I don't think I'm a real visual guy. I'm definitely an audio kind of person. I really love music and have been able to get into sounds and whatnot a lot more.
Yeah.
But I think it probably all kind of helps just spending time being creative and whatnot, exercising that part of your brain.
For sure. So you would say you're not artistic, but your bowls would tell a different story. You have a lot of sculptural bowls and stuff like that. What kind of inspires that kind of artwork?
I hear you. I don't know. It's tough on that front. I feel like I'm not hugely artistic, but glass is such a structured medium. I mean, it's very limiting in ways. Sure, if you're very talented, you can really do a lot, and people will say you can do anything. But on the other hand, as far as mediums go, artistic mediums, it's very limiting. You can't have angles on your piece very easily, or there's only certain colors you can work with. Getting certain shapes is hard. You have to anneal things, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like all that structure gives a nice framework where it makes being creative a lot easier, because instead of having every option available to you, you maybe only have this slice of the pie, and then within that it's a lot easier for me to work and explore and whatnot. Just having a good framework to work with, I guess, makes me feel more comfortable.
For sure. When were you first introduced to heady glass?
Heady glass, I didn't really discover until I'd already started blowing glass. I got into glass when I was really young. I just, probably seeing it on TV or something, the molten glass. I really liked the way it looked, and I was drawn to it. And I was also into cannabis, and eventually those two paths converged. But first I just liked glass for what it was, and then I wanted to work with glass. And once I started working with glass, I started to have my eyes opened to the world of heady glass, and that's when things really exploded for me. I remember wanting to tell everyone, you guys don't even know this glass that's being made. It's amazing. There are people making glass sculptures and bongs and rigs and pipes that are better than any of the art class I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I think most people are pretty unaware of some of the amazing glass art that has been made in the name in the cannabis industry. It's incredible.
For sure. So how old were you when you first started seeing glass blowing, and then when did you know you wanted to get behind a torch?
Oh man, I wasn't sure that I was going to be a lamp worker. I originally just wanted to work with glass one way or another, and I had a really awesome opportunity to learn about glass in all its forms at a school in Italy, which is kind of a story on its own. But at this school, we try stained glass, painting on glass, sculpting, a little bit of lamp working, a little bit of traditional furnace working, and all the different sorts of things you can do with glass, really. It was a crash course on everything. And from there, it started to really crystallize for me. It became clear that lamp working is going to be best way for me to get into glass in general. It's something you can do alone. You don't need a team. The barrier to entry, I mean, it's high with, it's all relative, but I mean, glass is an expensive thing in general, but you can get going lamp working much easier than you can in setting up a furnace shop or even some of like the fusing and stuff, like a lot of that other stuff. I don't know, it's just tricky to get into, but lamp working looked like, oh, that's possible. I can do that on my own and maybe see if I can make it work.
Nice. So when you had that thought and you thought you can make it work, what were kind of your next steps to get behind a torch and learning to work with the glass?
Well, first step was to find a place to melt, find a place to blow glass.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky. I found some guys in Brantford, and I spent some time with those guys, essentially learning just the basics of working on a torch, pulling a lot of stringers, doing some simple prep work. And from there, I was at the same time just watching tons of YouTube videos, and there was a really popular website at the time, The Melting Pot. It was talkglass.com, but it was a forum. There was lots of good glass sharing going on. And this was all sort of pre-YouTube. There was not really a ton of stuff on YouTube yet. And anyway, consuming all that at the same time as working with these other guys, set up my own home studio. It was pretty janky, but it let me get some more melting in, and just eventually, I started selling some jewelry to local art shops, and I made a super simple website that didn't really pan out, but I sold to family and friends, a lot of that at the beginning. And eventually some of the local stores started to buy some pipes and stuff. I was making a lot of spoon pipes, and just kept at it. Always, see what works. If it doesn't, try something else.
Yeah. So what year was it around when you started blowing glass full time?
Oh man, I'm bad with remembering dates, but I think like 2011.
Okay.
2012 maybe.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Coming up on 10.
It's true, yeah. It's coming up quick.
Awesome.
Lots has changed since then, that's for sure.
Yeah. What is your favorite thing about creating glass art?
It's so much. There's I love a lot about it for different reasons, and it really kind of depends on what mood you're in, right? But one of the best things has got to be just opening the kiln in the morning and seeing the stuff you made,
Yeah.
It's really nice where I get to put tons of effort into actually making something, and then I get to look at it and feel it and take nice photos of it, share it with people, send it to some. So I think I've really enjoyed making something, just having a product that you create, a tangible thing. That's been one of my favorite aspects of being a glassblower.
For sure. So you mentioned taking pictures of the glass, and you do a great job of promoting your own glass on Instagram. Why is it important for you to do that?
Well,
to have great pictures.
If you don't show it to people, then no one. It's almost as if you didn't even do it in the first place, other than you and the end owner. So and really that is the most important. The person who becomes the owner in the end, and the relationship they have with the piece and your work and everything. But I do think if you want to grow and you want to share your art and work with the world, that's an amazing way to do it. We have this awesome platform now that I can't even, sometimes it makes me laugh just at how perfect it is for glassblowers. Instagram, and there's a great glass community on Instagram for that reason, but it goes really, really well hand in hand.
For sure.
Nice photos, good glass community, all that stuff.
Who were some artists that were inspiring you when you first got started? So you said you're on YouTube quite a bit. Who were some guys that you were watching there?
So I would say probably as far as inspiration goes, the stuff I was really into at the beginning was I was trying to learn how to do everything on my own. So everyone who was sharing techniques and photos were the people that inspired me in a sense. I really appreciated that glass forum I mentioned earlier, the Melting Pot, because that was the best place to find out how to do things, techniques, and I don't know, just glass info in general, stuff about kilns, technical questions, whatnot. And I posted quite a bit back in the day. I remember that's pretty much the only forum I've ever been a part of, and it was really fun and important for me for a while. But with that in mind, I also, once I started paying more attention to heavy glass and learning and even visiting some of the stores around here, in particular Culture Rising, when Culture Rising started to open up in the area, and I would go in and I would see some of the artists they were carrying. A lot of that stuff probably was pretty strong in as an influence. Guys like Salt, Kevin Murray, Banjo, some like the really big name guys.
Yeah.
But they were the guys that opened my eyes to what glass could be.
So what would you recommend to beginner pipe makers or people interested in getting into it?
Well, definitely get behind a torch. From step one, get some time blowing glass somewhere to make sure you like it, because you probably will, but you want to make sure. I think it's a lot of fun, and most people who are into glass, like, you kind of know you want to try it it's, I don't know, if you try it and you end up not liking it, well, then that's easy. If you end up liking it, now you have the tough situation of trying to sort out how and where you can blow glass. But that's the most important thing, is getting some torch time. There's a lot of resources, more than ever, on the internet. There's literally tons of YouTube videos. They're not easy to find because it's a pretty small community, and often searching, you have to kind of know what to even search for to some degree.
Yeah.
But really, I feel like you can learn so much just from watching YouTube. But if you don't have a place to try that stuff out on your own, you're going to be in trouble. So whether you are able to find a public studio to work at, that would be the best, especially because if you don't know anything about setting up a studio, a lot of the technical stuff is taken care of.
Yeah.
But next best, set up a small shop on your own. There's not a ton of stuff you need. You need a kiln, you need a torch, and then you need the gases and ventilation. So
ventilation. How important is ventilation when setting up a shop?
I'm not like a health expert, but I think it's super important for many of the obvious reasons. You have open flame, combustion, and there's also all sorts of crazy metals and oxides and whatnot in the glass. So it's just a no-brainer. You really want to have good ventilation, especially because if you are successful and you're going to end up blowing glass a lot and more and more and more and spend more time behind your torch. So I just think it's really important to take care of your health and your body.
Yeah. So you told me a little bit about the business side of your career. In my opinion, you're quite successful in that portion there. Why is it so important for you to be organized in terms of the business side of being a glass blower? And are there any recommendations you can maybe make to pipe makers watching this?
Well, I mean, I guess it's important to be organized with the business side, because if you're going to be doing this for a living, it's going to become a business.
Yeah.
Whether you like it to or not, if you're trying to make money living as a glassblower, it's going to be a business in some shape or form. And so mostly I see it as you want to learn what you need to and set up that stuff so it can kind of take care of itself, or it can be as easy as possible. Because I'm sure it sounds very cliche, but as you grow, you end up spending less time in the shop, you end up spending more time answering emails, dealing with your invoices, and packing up shipping and photos and all that other stuff. But any improvements you can make to how you do those things, making them smoother and quicker and more efficient, all that will pay off over and over and over again as you go down the line.
For sure. Are there any direct recommendations you can make?
Good point. Well, I don't have any. It really depends. Anything you can do is good, and the more effort you put into it is better. But I would say I have found learning basic accounting has been very helpful, and I really don't enjoy it, to say the least. But it has been extremely helpful, because that's how your business deals with money, and in the end, that's fairly important. I would say pick up some basic accounting if you can, and I have listened. It doesn't have to be super hard. I've listened to some accounting audiobooks while working, and you just learn a lot more about the terminology and how these things are dealt with kind of behind the scenes. Even if you have an accountant doing everything for you, it's probably a good idea to know what they're looking out for example.
One of your very external factors of your business is your website. I know you mentioned you did a website earlier in your career that didn't really pan out. When did the idea come for your website for T-Rex, and how did you go about that?
Yeah, well, it's actually, I probably owe it to that school that I mentioned before. One of the things they made us do was make a website, and it was using a lot of the pre-made kind of tool called Joomla, which I think might still exist, but I wouldn't recommend it now. Anyway, that was great because it forced me to get my feet wet. And back then, it was a lot harder. Now, making your own website is
drag and build.
It's ridiculously user-friendly.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had one originally, I guess. It's like kind of, it was useful. It was very useful to have a place to send people, for even just family, friends, anyone who wanted to see what I was doing. I had a website. It was great. And it really, when it seems like you almost have to have a website to be a business these days. I mean, it's not totally necessary, but there certainly was, I feel like that was a pretty common sentiment over the past decades. Like, you're legit once you have a site.
Yeah.
And so having had one, I knew I kind of always wanted one. And then I think, I don't exactly remember how I first started things off, but Instagram, I was getting a lot of messages, a lot of people wanting custom work. I was enjoying doing custom work. It's fun to make something that someone really wants.
Yeah.
Help someone make a matching piece or whatever. You really make people happy with this kind of thing, and it's very rewarding working with customers. But it's time consuming, and so the website seemed like a really great way. I needed some way to kind of automate some of the order process. Especially, there's so many. Coming back to the business side of things, there's so many details you need to collect. You need to collect their address, their name. You need to collect all the details for the piece they want, where, the tax, which varies, which province they're in, all that stuff. And so if you can have a computer organize and automate some of that for you, again, it's just, it's really important to being able to grow and produce more, because otherwise you just spend all your time doing the same things.
For sure. So you said you started Glassblowing, it was 2011 around?
Yeah.
Okay, and when did you become a full-time? Would you say you became a full-time glassblower?
It was a little bit, I would say maybe like 2012 or so.
Okay.
Like shortly after, because kind of the way I actually have a geological engineering degree.
Yeah.
And I was able to work as a geologist doing exploration work for a little while, which was, I'd work 4 weeks on or 6 weeks every day.
Yeah.
And then I'd get a couple weeks off. And so that kind of,
jeez, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty intense, but that kind of lifestyle, I was quickly able to see I didn't want to live my whole life like that.
Yeah,
it was great for trying to start up a new business because I was able to save up all this money, and then I'd had a chunk of time where I could really sort of tackle the glassblowing thing, and I was setting up my studio in my time off. And it also really just, it let me be a part-time glassblower at first, kind of, for a short little while before, once I got going with glass though and was actually getting orders and whatnot, I very quickly didn't want to leave and didn't want to take time off, so I kind of let that whole geologist thing fade away.
Yeah.
But that was really helpful, and I'm really actually blessed and lucky I got to do all that, and also because I got some very cool experiences out there. I was able to work in the Arctic, in Northwest Territories, as in northern BC. I got to see a lot of beautiful nature in Canada, a lot of helicopter rides, really crazy stuff like that. And then the really coolest part was I spent a couple months in Albania, in the mountains of Albania, working in a really rural place. Just an amazing experience to have. I just feel very lucky that I got to have that before I got to do what I really wanted, which is be a glassblower.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You get to full-time pipe making in about 2012. When did you notice things were picking up steam? You're getting a lot of shop orders, a lot of customs coming in at the same time, and you need a website, things to help you manage?
Well, it sort of was always just slow and steady growth. I feel like there's still is a huge demand for Canadian-made glass here, especially simple stuff like spoons and simple bowls, but it's hard. You have to. It's tough because you want to. At the beginning, you're not making the greatest work, but you do want to price it affordably. And so maybe for me, that was the route, was starting with affordable work that I could just practice and make. And there was kind of unlimited demand for it. It was like as many clear spoons as I could make. People were willing to take them, but you only had so much time and money and materials, and so it was like constantly reinvesting back into the business, but then you'd be better next time, so then in the next year you get to make a little bit more, and slowly raising the prices as your work got better. I just was able to keep an eye on things again with some small understanding of accounting. I kept an eye on my business numbers and saw it. As long as things were growing, it's good. You know, I definitely was nowhere near. I wasn't profitable hardly at all the first couple of years. Again, I'm fortunate I had a previous job that let me, gave me this bit of a cushion to work with, because it took quite a bit of time before I was able to actually be comfortable with what I was going to earn in a year. But regardless, it was more of a slow and steady thing. And even then, I still feel like there's a long way to go. But as things are continuing to grow and improve and get better, I'm along for the ride. So I'm not going to stop until the plane crashes.
For sure. Awesome. So I would definitely consider you as one of Canada's top bowl makers. What would you attribute to that kind of success?
I think there's got to be some luck involved, you know, definitely. Right place, right time. Like when I first started making cone bowls in particular, first I used to make hollow bowls when I first started, quite a few, but I remember Matt from Culturizing and Port Credit saying, you know what, Trevor, we got a lot of people asking about martini style bowls. Like, can you make some of these for us? Like, I think you should give it a try. And I remember looking at them and like, they're so small. Like, what can you do with those? There's no room to do anything fun. And I think it even took me a couple months to getting around to try. But when I did, there was a great response, and they were challenging, actually. I think still have room for improvement in making my bowls. And it's the kind of thing where once you got into it, it was rewarding, there was demand for it. Especially at that time, the demand was growing. Like, there was kind of a bowl boom there for a little while. And it just drew me into it, you know, like all those things. I wanted to get better at it, and I kept at it, and it sort of fit my style in the end. I liked doing a lot of small sculptural stuff. I originally had started doing jewelry, so all these little parts and pieces sort of just seemed to fit together really well with the bowls, and I just ran with it.
For sure. And is that what made you decide to kind of just focus solely on bowls rather than, like, I know you did some pipes earlier in your years. I saw some at Culturizing.
Yeah, I did a lot of spoon pipes and Sherlock pipes and just simple stuff. And that, you know, that was really great for learning so many techniques. I learned how to pull my own tubing and all sorts of stuff, really. But I definitely started to narrow it down to bowls when I guess I got so busy. There was just a demand for them that I wasn't even able to meet. And, you know, over time, a lot of other glassblowers stepped up to help on that front. And I feel like I just kept focusing on the stuff that was working, you know, and was people wanted, and I kept getting more and more orders. And then it became, once you get busy with that, it's sort of harder to keep so many products on the go. And I remember having a case for pipes, you know, case for bowls, and even probably a case for jewelry. I was doing pendants for a long while there, and at some point it just got hard to keep everything in stock for the stores. And at some point I'm like, okay, let's reevaluate. I'm having more fun with the bowls right now. Let's just cut it to the bowls and see how that works. And it, you know, worked out fine. And even from there, like, I've kind of found a place within bowls. Like, there's still so much room for exploration. I do think, you know, some things would be nice. I don't have a glass lathe yet, and I know that would open a lot of doors for me with respect to making rigs. I find I'm not a really large guy, and making big stuff I find kind of hard on the body, hard on the back and shoulders.
I hear a lot of that for sure. People hand spinning tubes and such.
Definitely, right? And it's the kind of thing, because if you're doing it day in, day out, it's going to be hard. I do a lot of stretching and try to take care of my body as best I can, but if you're going to be doing something every day, you just got to be careful. Anyway, so bowls don't have that problem, but working other stuff, there's a lot of things I would love to have more time to do, I guess. I'm also at a really busy point in my life. I have 2 kids and another on the way, and so I do try to go easy on myself when I feel like having very young kids is a really busy time in you know, in the grand scheme of life. And I'm hoping that as you know, I always like put things off. In the future, I'll have more times to make some of those other things I would like to make. But to some degree, it's true, and that like now is not the time to be
like if
pushing on
as long as like you said, as long as the airplane's not crashing, just keep it flying.
That's right. Yeah.
Speaking of like having a young family, what's it like being you kind of touched on it, being a glassblower with that? It's really busy. How do you think that's going to change once they get older and kind of cannabis is more normalized?
To be honest, I have no idea. That much is really tough to say because kids are the biggest prize I've had yet.
Yeah.
Trying to anticipate anything, I mean, I guess I had some ideas of what having a kid would be like, or having kids would be like, and in the end, the reality is just, it's its own thing, It's really awesome. I'm really enjoying being a dad. But it's hard to know where that's going to take you. And I still wonder if I hope that we're able to just grow as a family, and my kids will learn from what I do and my experience and take away something positive from it. As far as what that will be, I really don't even want to say, because they just constantly surprise you.
Have they showed any interest in glassblowing, or have you ever wanted to teach them?
A little bit. I mean, not quite yet. I'm not in a huge hurry for a couple of reasons, because like it's you need to get good eye protection. I know everyone's different. I'm going to be happy to teach them when they're ready, but I'm not going to bring them out here when they're super small unless they really show interest. And right now, they do love coming in here, mainly to look at my color collection, because just seeing all the different colors on the wall is just they just love that. But actually, for my most recent birthday, I made her some gemstones using some of the awesome molten aura colors and some of the other really vibrant colors. And so there's going to be glass in their lives for sure. Whether they like it or not, just being around me, it's going to be unavoidable. For sure.
So now with like over 20,000 followers on Instagram, you're one of the biggest glassblowers in terms of the popularity on the platform in Canada. What's that like, and how did you kind of get to that area?
It's pretty funny, to be honest. I'm not. It's caught me off guard, that's for sure. I definitely was pretty intent on growing. I've been working pretty hard all along. I wanted to keep things going and get bigger and bigger, just because it seemed like the thing to do. But I don't quite know how it even all happened. I think a lot of it was I was making bowls at the right time. I was kind of already established as a bowl maker when the bowl scene really blew up here in Canada, and that was huge. And then this past year has been the year I've seen the most growth. I was at 10,000 followers at the beginning of the year practically. So everything happened very quickly, and it was actually a bit hard to manage. I was accustomed to having fairly slow and steady growth, which was great as one person. That's kind of the ideal. When you get a huge wave of growth as one person, you just get swamped. And even learning how to adjust to that has been a real challenge. I have a lot of stores, that have wanted work. I haven't been able to get work to them. And it's especially tough when it's stores that helped me grow originally, because I definitely feel nothing but loyalty and gratefulness for them, for their help, and I want to continue to help them grow as well. So I feel like it kind of just happened all of a sudden, and it's one of those things you just gotta roll with it when it does happen, I suppose. For sure. Yeah.
With social media and your website, especially with the popularity now, like, why is it so important for you to go to head shops and still maintain those relationships?
Oh yeah, I think it's really important because I mean, the internet, it doesn't exist, it doesn't. It's this place we all spend a lot of our...
Come down at any moment.
Totally, in a way, right? We often are spending more time on our phones and on the internet than ever, but the shops are the best. It's the only place where my work is being displayed, and I'm lucky enough now where I am able to get my work into what I consider the best shops. Anyone carrying my work is definitely one of the best shops. But those where they're doing a good job displaying your work, and I have a connection with many of the owners, and they know about me, and they know what I put into my work, and it's really just a super, it's kind of unbeatable as far as getting your name out there. You get your work and it's just going to be on display there. It kind of becomes part of that area in a way. And I do think that a crucial part of growing is getting your work out to as many shops as possible.
Sure.
Although that is tricky because if you're just one person, you can only make so much glass. And it's not like the stores want to buy your glass if it's not going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you can even just get work out that's just going to sit in a store. Like, that's not the goal either.
Yeah.
It's a really tricky fine line to walk, but in the end, it seems like the best part about it is the best part about, I don't even know what I quite want to say, but I've enjoyed that now I'm a little bit more established and I get to work with the shops that are good to work with, because
For sure.
certainly there have been some duds over the years. You learn these things as you go.
Yeah.
Some of the warning signs from a good shop and a bad shop, and what it means to be partnered with either.
Definitely. So you touched on it a little bit, like with the good owners and them kind of knowing how much you put into it. Are there any other things that you would kind of contribute to a shop being like known as a good shop?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's like reputation, is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, reputations that you can't really get a reputation as a good store, a good shop with undeservingly. Like, it's very rare. And I'd say having nice, courteous, knowledgeable owners, a nice, clean, desirable store that looks good.
Yeah.
Owners that are, and having owners that are good to work with, And I feel like, to be honest, most of the owners I've dealt with are pretty good to work with. Usually it's the Glassblower that's probably the weak link in that relationship.
Yeah.
But if you can find some people, you need to work together. You're working together to sell your glass, and if you can find some people that you can work together with, you're going to be great off, But if you treat it more, I don't know, if you treat it more like a one-time transaction, well, then that's probably not going to pay off in the end.
Yeah, for sure. In your opinion, what are some steps that can be taken to increase the exposure and interest in the Canadian pipe making scene overall?
Yeah, that's a tough question, because I'm not sure there's any real, silver bullet. Just the real classic hard work, the elbow grease, whatever. I'm not sure. I think that if you want to look at me as an example and consider that, okay, if I'd like to achieve some similar level of exposure or whatever, just all the main things that work for me, persistence and hard work, just making as much glass as I can, photographing as much of it as I can, sharing as many photos, talking with everyone I can. Don't burn any bridges. People are in bad moods sometimes when I message. I'm in a bad mood when I respond sometimes.
Yeah.
But just do your best to be as nice to everyone as possible. Treat others as you'd like to be treated.
Sure.
If you can just, and these are all super common sense things, but I think when you think about them individually, it's harder to actually apply them to your own life and situation.
Especially when you have so many people messaging you
all the time. Yeah,
and
you gotta just make sure that you build up those good habits to keep them going.
For sure. Awesome. So with almost 10 years in the game and almost exclusively making slides, how do you stay motivated and inspired to keep working?
Good question. I feel like a big part of it now has also just been routine. This is my job now. It has been for a while. I feel like I need to work, so I come out and I work. But that doesn't answer the question entirely. There's high points and low points, and certain things about the job are super rewarding and help motivate me. Hearing from someone that got a piece, they're like, I really love this piece. It just that kind of thing makes my day. And so a lot of those small interactions, you got to try to get your fuel from those. But at the same time, it's okay you got to realize it's not going to be 100% all the time. I would say maybe in some ways I'm even going through a little bit of a low point right now, motivation-wise. Just things outside of the glass world have got really busy for me. Coronavirus has played, wreaked havoc on mental health across the country. I don't think it was great for anyone there for a while. That being said, it's I've been doing it long enough now where I can feel comfortable. I know things are going to come back. I'll find another reason to get, that fire lit under my belly. To be honest, I just think that the key is enjoying what you do. I love blowing glass. So at the very least, when I come out here, I often tell myself or think to myself like, I'm in my happy spot. I'm behind the torch. I've got all this stuff to do today, but like, this is the fun part. This is the part where I get to make glass. And that's really awesome. Some of the other stuff it's harder to convince yourself, when you're slaving away at the computer, but it's all part of the job. And I'm fortunate to be a pretty positive person anyway, so I get to just carry that and to try to carry that into all parts of my life.
For sure. I'm on Instagram every single day doing Glass Fanatic stuff. It seems almost like every 3 or 4 months you're doing a giveaway. So if you're not following him, go follow at TRX Glass right now. Why is it important for you to do giveaways and to give back to your community?
Honestly, when I read this question, actually, I felt a little, not quite guilty, but I don't feel like I deserve much credit for giving stuff away, and that I feel like you give away so little that it's just like the very bare minimum. I wish I could give away a lot more in that, like, I know my glass is it's not cheap, glass is not, it's not something you can do cheaply.
No, it's definitely a luxury hobby.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I sometimes feel bad and like, I wish I could get more work into the hands of more people and whatnot. So it's just really nice to even be able to do that, a little bit. And Instagram is again just a great platform for it. It really is convenient. It's kind of a small way to reward the people who are following along with what I do and keeping me going, because kind of as I mentioned earlier, the people following along, giving me feedback and input on my work is a real big motivator. It's huge. And just to, reciprocate a little bit of that or whatever, it's kind of like, it's just something you do on Instagram on the one hand. Yeah. I've never wanted to use it to leverage more followers. I try to make my giveaways quite like simple. You just have to essentially comment or something. Yeah. But on the other hand, it's like really, it's nice to know that you're giving a little bit of hope, a little bit of excitement to everyone, just in case,
For sure. So we talked about some of the challenges in terms of like some of the busier things in your life. What are some of the more challenging techniques that you've learned in the glass?
When it comes down to it, glass blowing is there are these different techniques. You can almost describe them as separate things. And it's not so much any one technique that has really given me a ton of issues, with the exception of one, which I'll get into. But anytime you just got to keep practicing it. And if you have some problems, you can use your experience to help sort those out for the next time, make some adjustments, go on the internet, watch some videos if you need to, whatever. Most stuff like, learning how to do crushed opal tubing, learning how to pull my own tubing, even grinding my own joints, all those things, like learning curve to all of them, took me lots of mistakes. Anytime I learned something new, lots of glass going in the garbage. Yeah. But on their own, they're all fairly manageable. But probably the most challenging thing is being able to put them all together on one piece or various parts. And the build your own aspect of my website has really pushed my limit there, because it's one of the best things when someone comes through and wants, a really crazy piece. Yeah. But it's also, it's like, can I even do that? And when I put something up on my website, this is a very customizable, variable thing. I have to think it over really carefully. Okay, what are people going to be able to do with this? Because I don't want someone to be coming asking for something that's impossible, or like, I don't want to be making my life just so much harder with some sort of option that's difficult to work with. And probably in the end, like doing a triple horn, spirals, crushed opal on all the horns, hand ground joint, multi-hole, lip wrap with dichromo on it somewhere, like something like that. Those pieces still really get me going when I'm putting them together, and sometimes it can take all morning just to assemble the piece practically. Yeah. And with bowls, you can't really take breaks when you're working on a piece. You have to assemble, or when you're assembling a piece, at least the way I do it is start to finish. You can't really put it back in the kiln to heat it up. You gotta just get it all done in one go, and that can be quite tricky. Anyway, I did mention there was one technique that I do find difficult to this very day, and that's my signature Millie.
Ah, yes, Millie.
the little T-Rex 2020 in this case. I don't make them a lot because when I do make a batch, it'll make enough for, maybe between 30 to 50 millis.
Mm-hmm.
And so I only have to do it a couple times a year where I'll make a couple batches.
Yeah.
So that I'm sure that doesn't help, but still sometimes I'll sit down to do it and I will have like 3 failures in a row and waste the entire morning.
Oh,
and I can't, it is just a tricky technique where I blow a huge bubble and I write my T-Rex 2020 on there, and you have to get the font, just right. And then you got to melt it down, collapse it on itself, and then extrude it very evenly. And there's just so many little things going on where it's hard to almost pinpoint where I go wrong. It's not, usually I'll just end up with it just doesn't work. Half the millie's missing or whatever, and I'm like, I know I messed up. I've got to try again. But it's not one where I've really been able to find an answer to all my problems. That being said, I have noticed still, like everything over the years, I've gotten better and better, and the millies have gotten crisper, easier to read, and I fail a little less every time I come back at it.
Awesome. But I guess my last question, and sorry to put you on the spot, but is there anything big that we can expect from you? Any kind of shop drops coming up soon?
Sure, yeah, no prob. I definitely getting back into store drops, which is great. I actually had my kids home during coronavirus, which was really tough to get as much work done as I'd like. It was a real blessing in disguise in many ways. I'm sure I'll look back on it really fondly. We had a lot of great times together, but it was hard to get as much done as I wanted. Now I'm working again, more or less full time, and so I've already just recently had 2 store drops, culturizing Milton and Medusa and Guelph, and there'll definitely be a couple coming real soon. All the culturizing stores, basically, they're always high on my list.
Yeah.
And Liquid Chrome, there's a bunch of other stores I'm really overdue to get working to. So I'm working hard on making that happen. I was supposed to get down stems on the go this year. I was telling everyone I was going to do it back in February. Coronavirus.
Yeah.
So that kind of got put on the back burner, but it's still pretty high priority because I really want to be able to offer people to be able to buy a bowl and matching down stem.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
But it's going to take some time because, like I mentioned before, since things are so customizable, I like to be very comfortable before I put it up for people to customize.
For sure.
I want to be really rock solid.
Yeah.
And that way, the quality, the T-Rex brand will maintain its hopefully high level of quality.
For sure. All right, well, that's all my questions for today. You guys can follow T-Rex at TREX Glass on Instagram. Make sure you go give him a follow. Thanks so much for speaking with me today, man.
You too, Tyler. Thanks, man.